write questions on, and then we'll collect those questions, and then when we assemble the panel, then I'll be able to, pose questions and, be able to address the panel through those. All right, so if you have any questions, please, raise a hand, so Sherry can give you a clipboard and something to write with, and we'll get started with things. Okay? So I want to welcome you all here. I thank you so much for coming out on a chilly February evening. For those I have not met directly, my name is Phoenix Kawamoto, and I'm the project director for the Greater New Paltz Community Partnership. Tonight is our quarterly meeting. Our next quarterly meeting, just so folks can, we're going to be saying this a couple times throughout the night, but our next meeting has been scheduled for Wednesday, April 29th. Same time, 7 to 9, same location right here. So we will be, sending out announcements as to what the agenda for that meeting will be. And this evening's meeting is, as some of you may have noticed, Mr. Bob Fagan in the room, recording for us, so that this will air on Channel 23 New Paltz, as well as be on the Greater New Paltz Community Partnership's YouTube channel and Facebook page. So the goal is for those who couldn't be here tonight, we know that there were several meetings, village board meeting, school board, committee meetings, and so we've been getting emails from folks saying, I can't make it tonight. We understand, so we wanted to make sure that this information, which is really exciting and important, gets out to the community in the best ways possible. So we're grateful to have Bob here, and also to be able to utilize technology as much as possible. And my phone just let me know to remind people, if your ringer is on, to please silence it. Couldn't do that if I was on my phone, so couldn't plan it. So this evening is really designed, you notice that there's a number of, words on the board here. In our work in prevention and our work in the partnership, many of these things are the things that we are working for, my apologies, to really help support youth in these areas and really help them connect with existing opportunities. And, I often am in a position where folks approach me and they ask me questions like, we really should get something started where kids have the opportunity to do such and such. And I say, that's a wonderful idea, and did you know it's happening? And, and here's who to connect with. Because oftentimes, especially I know in this community, when I first took on this position, I kept telling folks, this is like such a resource-rich community. There's so much happening here, and so much talent, and, people who are dedicated in their different talents and skills and things that they want to be involved with, that, one of the roles that I get to play is to try to help connect people and be that bridge builder. So tonight, our goal is to, one, give folks a kind of a Prevention 101 foundation, without talking too long about it, but just so that we all have common language, we know what we're talking, so if you hear us use certain terminology, you know what we're talking about. Those of us who work in this field and have been working in it for a while, just like other fields, we can start talking a language that folks go, what are you talking about? So I really wanted to make sure that folks, have that basic understanding, give you some current updates on approaches and gaps and concerns, because one of the things that the community partnership is very involved with, and you're going to see just how involved we are, is that we work with all of these different community players, community partners, collaborators, different agencies, organizations, the school on many levels. And we are constantly asking the question, how are we doing? There's always room for improvement. I'm one of those people that it's like, okay, I did a good job there, but how could I even do it better? So we bring that energy to the meetings and the things that we do, trying to look for the best possible solution, knowing sometimes even the solutions we really strive for, we like to do, there are many barriers that get in the way. And so we'll be talking about that tonight, as well as an update on some of the things that we are concerned about, new and upcoming trends that, and I don't, I say the word trends and I kind of want to bite my nails because I don't want to, I don't have a crystal ball. But I can tell you that there's certain things that are definitely trending in the nation, in the region, and, we're part of it. Just by virtue of being, in this time and place on the planet. So we'll be talking a little bit about those concerns and steps we're looking to take in regards to that. And also then open it up through our panel discussion to as many questions. And it might not even be your question, it might be something that you've heard people talking about that you would really like to hear the panel address, especially because we have the opportunity to get it out there on public access and on the YouTube channel, and social media. So, if it's not particularly your question, but it's a question, please add it to the mix so we can go forward. So when we talk about Prevention 101, you're going to hear me say some different terms such as environmental prevention, evidence-based practices, protective factors, risk factors, developmental assets. You will be receiving some information in a little while that we've put together for you so that you don't have to worry about memorizing all of this. And we'll make it available on our Facebook page as well, so that if you want to get the handouts, all you got to do is just go to the Facebook page for the Greater New Paltz Community Partnership and you can download them. As a coalition, we basically exist in this capacity. So we look at young people in our community and we say, none of us exist in a vacuum. The environment that we live in, that we work in, that we play in, all of these different things are interacting and impacting us. And it's not one thing, just one specific thing, that causes a problem in someone's life or helps lead to a decision. It's usually a number of different factors. And I know that this was part of a conversation thread on Facebook, and that, there are lots of different risk factors. There's lots of different things that can lead someone to make a choice to use substances. So I say that and I toss it out to you. So for folks to just kind of call out, what do you think are some of the things that lead to somebody who might make that choice to use? Boredom. Stress.
Self-esteem.
Self-esteem.
Availability.
Peer pressure.
What else? Mental health issues. Anxiety, depression, maybe family issues that are going on, not knowing how to cope with certain things, academic pressures, right? I mean, we could create quite a list. What helps people, including young people, because young people are not the only ones who make these decisions, that can help them make a choice that's healthier for themselves, more supportive? What kind of things help protect our youth? Using the word protect for protective factors. Education. Communication. Relationships. Support. Normalization. Love. Right?
Availability of the positives.
Availability of the positive. Be able to have choices. One of the things that I know, and we'll be talking more as the night goes on, the New Paltz, I know just from my work at the high school, I can't speak of the other schools because I haven't really worked closely with them yet. But I know that with the work with the high school students that are doing, oh my gosh, the amount of choices that they have as far as different types of opportunities. So, and I know from student, feedback and survey data and so forth, that the students over the years consistently
rank the school very high for the amount of opportunities they provide students. So, there are many places in this community. The New Paltz Youth Program in particular, you're going to hear from Jim Tinger in a little while. I'm incredibly impressed with the number of activities and different types of supports that are offered on a daily basis through that program. So, one of the handouts that I'll be handing out for you is on the 40 developmental assets. And, when you look at those, some of the things that we were talking about are just that there's things that help all of us do better in our lives, that we feel better because of the external, the things that help support us and create that space for us, as well as internal qualities, things that we're able to develop in ourselves, and some of them we already have in us. So, we can all help youth. We can all be, an asset builder by just learning how to support those positive things. The goal of the partnership, just so you know, community coalitions, our job is to help enhance those things that you're talking about as far as protective things. That's why we work with all of these organizations, and we work to reduce the risks that are coming, at our youth or are around our youth just by virtue of the environment. So, unlike a particular organization or, our funding basically says our role as a coalition is to kind of help be that container, to help kind of provide that support, kind of, help create those wraparound services that people don't know about, help them get access to them, and really make things better for themselves. We work in a 5-domain area. Our grant funding tends to be focused on the community side. That is what environmental prevention, it's in the name, environments of the community, things that are community-based approaches. So when people ask me, well, why aren't you, why can't you, sponsor an after-school program? My funding does not allow for that. So we look for other ways and other organizations who do help provide those types of resources, and they're here. So it's, again, helping people connect. We know that if we're going to help youth live and they're connected to their family, they're connected to their peers, they're spending a lot of time in school, right? And home away from home. And, and it's all being held by the community. So in order for us to be effective, we need to be making, strides in all of these areas, right? So we use multiple strategies, as many different strategies as we can that make sense for this community, right? Because there are some things that work in other places that would never work here, and vice versa. I'm proud to say that we're doing a number of very innovative programs. Again, it really speaks to I think the sophistication and the creativity in this community that is allowing us to do things that are very out of the box and very exciting. Not just for me, which is kind of, that's an added bonus, but for all of the people that I'm working with, it's been really a lot of fun. We work with all of these 12 sectors. That's part of why we have the funding we have. We would not be allowed to have this funding. It wouldn't be, it is a privilege to have this grant. We have it for another year and 5 months, somewhere around there, till September 30th, 2016. So, we are really going full tilt to make sure that we, do as much as we can in really building this coalition and the programs and strategies we're using. So, there's a number of these sectors here in the room tonight. And several of them, of course, you will be hearing from in a few moments. There are 7 strategies that we use. So, providing information is just like it's kind of the mainstay. It's like the bread, Our goal is to get information out. It was raised as one of the things that can help education, right? People don't know what they don't know, and when they know something, then they have a choice to utilize that knowledge or not. Excuse me, but we know information alone doesn't change people's behavior, you know. I know what healthy eating is, right? And I still chose to have a cookie and, you know, well, no, I had 3 cookies. But, you know, so, you know, true confessions on public access. But, you know, it is about, you know, this is one part of the strategy, provide the information, and we do it in a number of ways. And this is just part of it. Some of you have already heard our radio commercials that we have had on several stations in the area. Informational materials, you know, utilizing Facebook, and a growing number of more face-to-face kinds of things, whether it's with students in high school health classes, or it's doing some staff development training for the support staff at the school, or probation officers, or credentialed alcohols and counselors to be. We're getting more and more calls to help bring in information as well as to do training. So, you know, things are really, really moving here. The enhancing skills, we're doing a lot of leadership training. We're going to be talking about that in a moment. And we're going to be branching out to do some parent pieces in the near future. One of the things that I'd like you to keep an eye on for Facebook is we're going to be doing some focus groups for parents. We have, again, a lot of resources, a lot of people who want to be able to help parents, but we don't want to just, you know, guess what would be helpful to you. We want to hear from you. We want to be able to have those conversations. One of the things that we hear a lot about is stress and time, you know, and how do we get everything done that we're, you know, we're like hamsters in a wheel, and how do we do this, and how do I still do all of that and be there for my kids, and how do I, and so we have been working with a community member, Carrie Zerlini, and, you know, talking with the school district and exploring mindfulness education and training, not just for students, but also to help parents and families. And Carrie, can you just say a few things about why we would even want to explore that?
Sure. I mean, really the premise, I don't know how familiar any of you are with mindfulness, and I think the term these days has been thrown out there in many different ways, so it's kind of morphed into many different things, but the general premise is bringing a non-judgmental awareness or attention in any given moment to whatever it is that you're doing. And one of the main facets of a mindfulness practice is a focus and attention on your breath, the breath moving in and out of your body. And in doing so, it has a deep impact physiologically and neurologically. And when you have a repeated practice of bringing attention to your breath and having focus, it does create different neural pathways in your brain that allow for you to call upon, so it has a calming effect to your body. And with repeated practice, it allows you to self-regulate in any given situation that you're in. So in bringing mindfulness, there's so many things I can talk about right now, but in bringing mindfulness to youth, which is what I've really been active in doing over the past few years, is it brings an awareness for a child or an adult to how you're feeling in any particular moment, physically, also emotionally, and this allows you to learn self-regulation techniques. So bringing self-awareness, self-regulation, which then allows you to interact with others in a more mindful way. So you're able to, in any given situation, see how another is acting towards you and then act in a more conscious way rather than reacting in a given situation. And I'm not sure, there are many different facets of mindfulness. So different practices, there's, mindful eating, mindful walking, mindful and move, there's yoga practices. And I'm not sure exactly what you want me to speak
No, I
to right
think
now
that's-
as far as,
yeah.
so there's a lot of new up-and-coming research around the brain and what mindfulness practices can do. And there are also really great up-and-coming and current programs that are coming into schools. And I'm currently involved in one. And it's very comprehensive in the fact that, well, one of the things about these mindfulness programs that are coming up and out is that the first and foremost thing that they're doing is training the teachers and training the staff to have a mindfulness practice for themselves. Because the research is showing that just in a teacher or an adult having a mindful practice and a mindful presence, it affects the people that you're around, the children that you're with. And another, some more recent research that's current is around mirror neurons. So this idea of us having these neurons in our brain that allow for us to, when somebody's in your presence, you can physically mirror their actions, but also emotionally you're feeling what they're feeling. So for a teacher in a classroom, this has tremendous implications for the children in front of us every day. And so every program that I know of that's out there, Inner Resilience, Mind Up, Mindful Schools, they all start with the training of the teachers. And then they train you in the curriculum to bring it to the kids. And the program that I currently, we have Mind Up in my school, and we've all been trained in using it. And it's wonderful in the sense that it teaches, the most important piece I think here is that it teaches the children about the functions of their brain. And then it also has the mindfulness practices piece, social emotional learning, and positive psychology. So it's all of this all wrapped in this comprehensive program that allows for, so if you can imagine this, you know, I teach kindergarten currently, and when I think about what these children are able to, how they're able to self-regulate at the age of 5, and the way that they're interacting with their peers in a compassionate way. If we can imagine that every child had that experience at such a young age, how different our world would be. It really is very powerful. And there's a great deal of, you know, if any one of you in the room, you can go, of course, to the Mind Up site, Inner Resilience, Mindful Schools. There's various sites you can go to find research. But if you just Google mindfulness or mindfulness in schools, you'll see tons of information come up. But I'll say this is kind of a little sidebar, but if we think about the number of hours that our children are in the 4 walls of our schools, and with the current stress that's happening in public education for administrators, for teachers, and for our children, I have to say, every part of my being says, and I'll say it in public access, that the time is really now for us to collectively look at what we can do to support ourselves as adults. First and foremost, I'll put that first and foremost, and then so that we can bring that to our children as well. They need us. They need us to take care of ourselves in this way so that they can then care for themselves. And I can speak, I can go in lots of different directions here, but I am more than happy to have a conversation with anybody. You can, I guess I shouldn't offer to come to my school on public TV. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I think too, you know, one of the things that we're going to be doing is really exploring collaboration. And when we do the parent focus groups, to be able to look at how we can bring mindfulness workshops and things here into the community for people of all ages. You know, and not putting, you know, not putting students on the spot that are here in the room, but I've talked with a lot of students, and one of the main things when I ask them, and some of you have heard me say this, I ask, so what is one thing I could do to be of help to you? And they're like, help us with stress. That is the number one thing that comes out of their mouth. Help us with stress, with stress, with stress. And so we created Stress Busters, and we get to do this, thing twice a year at the high school, which is wonderful. And people who hear about it, the adults who hear about it, are pretty envious. They're like, "Well, do you do Stress Busters for adults?" And but it's thanks to volunteers in the community who donate their time, their skills, and they come to the high school and they work free of charge with high school students, giving them different opportunities to experience ways that they can reduce stress and feel good. That are substance-free. Because we know that stress and emotional distress can be a leading, causal factor in someone making that decision to self-medicate, to look at a way to take that stress away, to calm themselves down. And our culture kind of supports that, it's okay, take a pill or drink this or do that, well, what about when you don't have a pill or you don't, and if you're always reliant on an outer substance to help yourself feel better, that's not going to fare well for you. It's going to lead to dependency and other issues. So to be able to empower youth and empower adults, to be able to, I love what science is doing. I love the fact that it is kind of validating, old wisdom in a new time. And we're getting to re-experience some of that knowledge and skills. So again, stay tuned on Facebook, look for what we're working on. So we're involved in a lot of trainings. The exciting one that I wanted to really point out to you is our Step Up Bystander Intervention. And with that, I'm going to introduce Stephanie Pina. She is our program assistant. She's an intern from SUNY Paltz. Assistant extraordinaire, and I'm going to turn it over to her for a few minutes to talk about what we're doing. So, it's all you, Steph.
Hi, how's everyone doing? So, Step Up, Michelle Combs, Student Director at SUNY Paltz, Student Development, is actually here with us today. She worked with Colleen Bruley, who's the female soccer coach for the women's soccer team, and back in 2012 they went to Arizona to learn more about the Step Up Bystander Initiative presentation. So basically what it is, it talks about the bystander effect. So if there's a group of people and something happens, it's, I believe, 80% likely that you won't do something because you assume that someone else in the room is already going to take initiative and handle the situation. So what it is, it's a lifelong skill-building presentation to teach students on what to do in the future to help out. And it actually shows you ways that reasons why we wouldn't help out. So there's different methods. There's a 5-step method that we teach. We teach like I statements, things like that. And actually, February 11th, a couple weeks ago, we brought 27 high school students to SUNY Paltz, and we presented the Step Up presentation. So that's actually what this picture is from. And if you want to go back, I'll show the t-shirts. So we actually designed t-shirts and frisbees for the students too, just to send out the message, don't just stand by, step up and actually help someone out in a situation. And we actually have a high school student who's Leah, who's wearing it today.
Walk the catwalk.
On TV.
Your moment says your 15 seconds of fame.
It says Greater New Paltz Community Partnership. And on the back it's their logo.
So Michelle actually was able to present the Step Up to about 500 people, 400 students, and 100 faculty members, and we're on the 27 high school students. So this is actually, we've never been done before with the high school level, so we can then sit down a little bit to teach students these skills. And I don't know if you want to talk about your experience post Step Up, how it was.
I'll talk about it. Hi, I'm Jessica. I'm a New Paltz High School student, and I attended the Step Up training program. Before this program, I always knew that inside I had leadership ability. I always wanted to help people, but I never felt confident enough to go and help them. I went to this program kind of nervous, but excited. And after the program, I learned many ways on how to handle a situation that I may have not felt comfortable in. And after the fact, I felt a lot more confident. My leadership that was inside me
came out, and I felt like I could help like everyone. And actually, a couple days after the training, I'm an AP Chem student, so I was staying after with my teacher, and I saw a student who was really struggling in their regular Regents chemistry class. And the teacher was really busy. She had like 5 students around her, and I felt like no one was trying to help this student. So I took 6 to 8 hours one day, one-on-one with the student, to teach her about 3 lessons. And then the next day I spent only like 2 hours with her maybe. But the test the next day, she got the highest grade she's ever gotten in chemistry on. So, it was just really nice to step up and be the person who's going to help her. The teacher, of course, is willing to help, but having 60 hours one-on-one with the teacher is very hard, as she has how many other students in the school. So I'm AP Chemistry, so I figured why not help a Regents chemistry student, and she was really happy after the fact. And I think I'm going to continue to be that leader, not only tutor kids, but I also want to help like everyone in the school to be the best they can be and to help the school be the best school that it can be. So that was my experience, and
Really interesting, you actually demonstrate a really good, a really good point about the program, because I think initially when you speak about it, you assume that it's someone's getting bullied, so you're kind of
Right.
stepping in to
Yeah.
kind of help out the situation. You illustrated a point where it's actually giving you confidence where you could be helpful in all different types of situations,
Right.
not necessarily, especially a situation like that, and not too many people are going to actually, because it doesn't seem like, they're probably not like, oh my God,
Right.
you know what I mean? Like you just recognize there was a struggle and a challenge.
Yeah.
That's pretty impressive.
Very impressive.
Yeah, I was actually going to touch on the scenario she spoke about. So she spoke about a non-emergency situation, and we talk about emergency situations as well. And we try to teach students, you know, if it's an unsafe environment, step away from it, and here are some skills that you can do, here are some things that you can do, rather than approach the situation yourself and put yourself in harm's way. So we handle both situations, emergency and non-emergency. And some scenarios that we went over with the students were alcohol and drugs, anxiety, stress. These are the 3 topics in name calling, or the 3 topics that they thought was the most important that we should discuss. So also have scenarios at the end of the training to kind of just talk about all the things that we learned and how they could use it within each scenario.
That's great. Awesome. Leah, did you want to say anything?
I basically had the same opinion as Jesse going into the training. I'm also a junior at New Paltz High School. And I don't know, I'm always a very shy person in school, but going to this and like seeing that a lot of other students had the same like opinions and values was like really cool. And then a few days later, I was driving down the road and I saw this man who was going too fast around the turn after the snowstorm, and he had his car stuck in the side of the road. And so I pulled over and tried to help him, but I couldn't really do much. And I knew I couldn't because I'm a driver and I just have an electrical vehicle. So I couldn't help him, but I think it was nice to just like have someone pull over and like ask if he needed anything.
Yeah.
And so yeah, it was just like now I know in my mind that I can do something, but it's also okay to like walk away, like and do other things that will still help.
Yeah, awesome. That's great. One of the things that, and thank you so much, you did a great job. One of the things that we're working with Ms. Clinton is, you know, eventually the goal is that, you know, we're going to be doing a train the trainer for faculty at the high school, and, you know, this program will be rolling out, you know, in the high school with students in different class settings. We're also going to be doing a training for Jim Tinger's staff at the New Paltz Youth Program and volunteers next Tuesday. And we had 17 of the 27 students who participated in the training who have signed up and stepped up to help us bring Step Up into the community. So, you know, we're really excited about this, and we do have a sign-up sheet which we'll probably put out at the front table. If anyone here is interested in attending a Step Up session and learning more about the program, please sign up, and then we'll schedule it at a time that's convenient. We're really, I'm very grateful to Michelle Combs from SUNY New Paltz. She's been phenomenal to work with, and it's, you know, it changed me in little ways, like Jim was saying.
there's lots of these little kinds of situations where we have the opportunity to step up or not. And, every time I step up, I feel better, and it's just one of those things of, people say, well, we need a little more kindness in the world. We need a little more community building. We need a little more, and here, we have something really valuable and empowering to help make that happen. So we're going to hand out these, Stephanie's going to hand out these packets for you. Sherry, would you mind handing this one out? The long sheet that you're going to see is just a list of, the different, so there's a couple of handouts that you're going to get. The one on prevention strategies is what we're kind of going through very quickly at this point, because I want to get to the Q&A. But the 11 by 14 sheet that you're going to be receiving is our ongoing and upcoming prevention activities and how they are in support of these 7, how they incorporate these 7 different prevention strategies. When you see this list and get to spend some time with it, there's really some amazing things that are happening. So there's great things there to feel good about. We have a number of these things happening in the community. The providing support, drug-free opportunities, social events like New Paltz Eve was very successful in this community. It came back after the mid-90s with literally hundreds of people having dinner thanks to 7 different church organizations were involved, and community bonfire, community dance. All of these things with community coming together. So there are many people involved in this. The enhancing access and reducing barriers. We are working together to help bring people and connect them to treatment resources such as Step 1 or mental health, ASTERS, children and family services. A lot of people in this room and watching, there are many different service providers, Family of Woodstock and Family of New Paltz, that we collaborate with to really help connect people to those programs. Changing consequences. One of the things that we are really involved with is supporting our local law enforcement in their efforts on reducing access and availability through compliance checks, underage drinking prevention efforts, which is a big issue, not just in New Paltz, but in many communities. And some of the risky and very dangerous situations that youth are finding themselves in, being underage and in, situations not where just alcohol is flowing quite, abundantly, but other substances as well. And we know when people's thought processes and their decision-making abilities are impaired, it really leaves them vulnerable to situations and risks that we don't want to see happen to them. Everyone in this room is here because they care about young people. Whether it's peers, whether it's children, nieces, nephews, just, the young people that we work with. We're here because we care. And we really want to help that, improve. Physical and environmental changes. I know Clean Sweep is coming. It's a big thing here in New Paltz. But one of the risk factors that we know of is that when people don't feel connected to their community, or their community doesn't feel good to them, they don't feel good in their community. So to help people feel better and feel connected, this is one technique to kind of improve people's connection to their neighborhood, be better attached to it. As well as signing and advertising practices, things we have not really addressed at this point here in New Paltz. But we know that, when there is community messages, and I'm not sure which one of you I think referred to something about, maybe it wasn't the two of you, maybe someone else, but feeling pressured by what you saw around you, or different, if the messages in the community are strong pro-use messages and you're trying to not use, it makes it a little hard. And if you're in recovery and you're trying to not use, and the messages are all around you to use. So I think it was something that Leah said, that around social norms, what people think. And we are impacted by what we think other people think, our perception. So we're going to be talking about perception tonight and misperception, because there's a lot of myths. It's very easy. You know how rumors go. And people say, well, I heard, and next thing you know, it's fact. Because I saw it on Facebook, it must be true, or, I heard it 3 different times, and I know those people, and, well, I'm not trying to diss the people that we know, but we hear things, and our brain is pretty amazing at what it can do with creating a story. And I know a lot about that. So, we're working to, help change, our environment the best ways we can. And policies are a big way of, again, saying what the community believes in and what it doesn't believe in. And policies impact. And, one of the things that, we've been talking about is looking at, how can we support young people who might need assessment to see if they need an intervention. If a young person is under the influence and gets in some trouble, maybe we need to just kind of take a look and see if there's another problem underneath that we can help them get the help that they might need. So we're exploring these types of areas as well. So again, if anybody wants to get involved, the best way to reach me is calling me here at the office. I am a staff of 1 I'm not a staff of 1 anymore. I don't have to say that. Yay! We are a staff of 2. And we're in the community a lot. So, if you don't get an immediate call back, please accept my apology now, but know that I'll call you as soon as possible. And email is usually the fastest way to get in touch with me, thanks to our technology in our pockets. So please feel free to reach out to me. I welcome people. That's kind of how Carrie and I met. Was at one of these meetings, and she said, I'd really like to talk with you, and she came here, and we had a meeting. And so if you have ideas, or if you have concerns, I'm really accessible that way. And again, our next quarterly meeting is Wednesday, April 29th, 7 to 9, and we're working on what that meeting is going to look like, and so kind of stay tuned. At this point, we're going to pause in the action, move the computer stuff out of the way, bring out the panel tables a little closer, and we'll start the Q&A and panel discussion in just a moment. So this might be a good time to utilize the restrooms, grab some more water or tea or snacks, and we'll be right back. Thank you.
They see, we go in and I do participation in government classes here and there, and those little kids, but it's hard. By that point, they kind of develop their mindset.
Okay, welcome back. So at this point, we're gonna say a couple words about the panel and kind of how we got to this, how we put this particular panel together. Before I move to that, though, I wanted to just acknowledge some of the people and the resources that are here in the room. We have Roger Spool, who is not just community member, but also with Step 1, treatment facility outpatient, and one of his directors, Chris Dennehy, is on the panel, which we'll talk about in a moment. Cheryl DiPaolo, who is the director of the Ulster Prevention Council. Jennifer Bryan, who is with the Mid-Hudson Prevention Resource Center. We have Michelle Martoni with us, Assistant Superintendent from the school district. Michelle Combs, who is with SUNY and Paltz and rocking it with Step 1, Step Up, and not Step 1, Step Up. A lot of steps happening. But really does amazing work at the college as well. And then a couple of our steering committee members, Lenore Kaufman, Sherry Canner, Jim Tinger, chair of our steering committee. Okay, I think I passed the test. Oh, I didn't. Jonas Bears from Family of Woodstock. So thank you so much, Jonas, for being here with us tonight too, because we know that Family provides a number of great programs and services, and so he's here to be able to help answer some questions that might come up as to things that they offer that might benefit that maybe folks aren't aware of or we're not utilizing. Okay, so again, I want to thank everyone for being here. Give you some insight on the panel. So Jennifer McGann has been with the partnership
close to since its inception, I think. And she is our independent third-party evaluator. She works with us to help us look at the things that we are implementing, as well as help us look at data and the things that we're seeing in the community, and really inform our strategies, our planning, to help us be as effective as we can possibly be. So thank you for being here. Rob Lucchese, so glad to have you here. I've had the pleasure of working with Rob on a number of things through this, underage drinking prevention related, downtown concerns, issues, a number of things. And Rob recently joined our steering committee as well. So we're really glad to have you. And of course, Barbara Clinton, it's always a pleasure. I've been really enjoying the opportunity to work with you and your faculty and students. I have coalition members from other communities who are a little envious as to the kinds of things we are getting to do with the school district. So it really speaks to the leadership in this district, and I'm grateful. So thank you. And Jim, of course, is always busy and quiet about it with the New Paltz Youth Program and all the great things that are happening there, and serves and has served on the steering committee as the chair for forever. No, not forever, but for a number of years.
42 years.
Yeah, for 8. But it's really great to have you here. And Chris Dennehy as the director of the Highland office for Step 1 specializes in his also work with adolescent treatment issues. And we really wanted to bring together tonight some of the factual information about what's happening, and also provide an opportunity to get new information that you might have that we don't have, because we don't know it all, right? We know the best we can of what we're dealing with, and keep anchoring and adjusting and moving forward. As we get started, one of the things that we were talking about was perception, kind of how we see things. And it really is important, because how we see and how we think really can take us down some interesting roads. So, Jen, would you talk to a little bit that as far as why we're working so much around perception and social norms and so forth?
Absolutely. I had a conversation earlier this week where we talked about how often we're asked in our day-to-day routines and activities to really be fast thinkers, right? And you think about how quickly we're asked to make decisions, and important decisions. And very often those important decisions being made in such a short period of time don't afford us the opportunity for critical evaluation or critical thought that accompanies some of those decisions. And that makes it sometimes difficult to really look at all the possibilities in terms of the impact of your decision. It's also very much influenced by your already existing constructs or schemas of, we're talking about all these neurons, we have to get that stuff in here. Your already existing schemas of how things should be, right? And very often, if we've had a recent experience or we've talked to a few people about a topic and that's recently been on our minds, we can draw conclusions that are not necessarily accurate, but that are a fault of this fast thinking and fast-paced environment that we're in, and really the consequence of the lack of critical evaluation. So one of the things that we're doing with the partnership is really working with the community and working with the students and families in the community to look at what the perceptions of our community members are for a couple of reasons. We know that norms, okay, or the typical way that someone responds to something, a normative response is the average response that you get from someone, are often driven by people's perceptions. The challenge is that those perceptions aren't always correct, right? Sometimes those perceptions are driven by the fast thinking, sometimes they're driven by a recent program or a recent conversation on social media, and they aren't necessarily true. But we tend to behave in ways congruent with not necessarily the actual facts, but what our perception is. And our perceptions become our reality. So the work that we're doing in the partnership is really speaking to what the community perceptions are and how far those perceptions deviate from what the actual value of that information is. So an example might be that, well, all people use marijuana, right? And yeah, everybody does it. Might be something that you would respond to. When in fact we know that not everybody or all people are using marijuana, right? So our perception of something can really inform our behavior and our decision making. And that's what we're looking to provide information and share strategies with the community, with families, with the school, to help them counteract the misperceptions that might be out there, that might be driving individual behavior in ways that are not congruent with what the actual information is.
Yeah, one of the comments that was made earlier about peer pressure, one of the things that, happens in a peer pressure situation, and not adults feel it too, is, what we think everybody is expecting us to do, that perception of what we're supposed to do in that situation. And I think one of the great things about the Step Up program is really about taking a step back and feeling support, like has been expressed here, that, oh wait, I'm not the only one who thinks this way. Other people feel that way too and believe that way too, because we have done some work to look at what youth think other teens are using and how much they think they're using. Because we also know that people will use to what they think is normal use. If everybody is, smoking, I don't even know how much now this way. I look at Chris with the treatment end of things, as far as, lots. But, if I'm around people who are smoking a lot, then I think everybody's smoking a lot. And especially if I'm heavily into a substance, as someone who's, in long-term recovery, I know I made sure that the people around me were using pretty much as I was. So that way I didn't stand out.
But along those lines, and the perception is, you ask young people who've made it to the point where now they're in treatment for their substances, and you ask them how many people are doing, what's going on. Everybody uses, and then you start asking them who, and they name 3 other people in the group with them, and the 2 others who are inpatient. So the 5-6 people they hang out with are using, because their social circle has constricted to the point of just the people who are using, and so their perception is everybody's doing it, and I'm not as bad as so and so because there's always somebody worse.
We used to do this. Experiment every year with kids who get their yearbooks, and whenever they would talk about everybody's using, we'd go through the yearbook, and I would say, okay, why don't you point to me everybody that you know? I'll give you even the ones you assume. I'll give you that. How many people? And it's always less than. There's 10 people, 12 people out of hundreds of people. It's always it's always that same thing.
Yeah, and I think that one of the things, and looking at Rob, I get people asking me questions, and I make the call to Rob or Chief Schneider, and I make the call to, Barbara, and I say, okay, I'm hearing this, what's the real deal? And so I wanted to make sure that folks had the opportunity to ask the questions and get what, we know of as what's the real deal. So having said that, Rob, give us the real deal, and then Barbara can chime in.
Just the real deal.
Just the real deal.
Just the fact.
No pressure.
From the police department's perspective, we deal in the obviously the enforcement aspect primarily, and in doing so, we take what we have or what's in front of us, not what we can't go always based upon what we believe or what everybody is saying. So we take it on a case-by-case basis more than anything else. One of the things that Chief Schneider has made a priority, though, for us as an agency is to segue into other areas, not just enforcement. Our membership or our participation in the community partnership is a huge part of that drive. It enables us to interact with people from other sects of the community and to help understand things that may be taking place. We are also the chief has also made it a priority to participate in like the downtown issues, and just to get an understanding. And yes, then maybe from that we will take an enforcement approach. Part of our working relationship with the community partnership has been underage compliance checks, where we will look to see if that businesses are not selling to underage kids. And we do that in conjunction with community partnership. We have installed, you talk about drug usage, one of the big things that we got from community partnership was a medical drop box here at our police station. I think it's been invaluable. We are destroying prescription medication, to me, at an unprecedented rate. We have it, we are constantly emptying that box, and we're constantly having to make arrangements to have things destroyed from medical drop-off. We are in dialogue with the school district. We try again to open up all of that communication so that when we do identify a problem, we can take an action, or at least maybe make a plan of action to address whatever that concern is. Even from a law enforcement perspective, and if I'm not answering the question, just stop me. But we work with our judges. In New Paltz, I will say that our two judges are very good to work with. We can identify those that may be taken into custody for drug offenses that are nonviolent, that may be better suited in some sort of diversionary program. And we try to work with our judges in that regard. It's not just, arrest somebody, throw away, lock them up and throw away the key. That doesn't solve the problem, and we're cognizant of that, and that's why we are trying to become more and more involved in other areas as well. We are always at a disadvantage in the sense that nobody wants to tell the police anything. That's you're the police, so sometimes you're the last to know what's going on. And that's why it's also helpful to be involved with the people that I am involved with on the steering committee and community partnership, because then you can get some information and it can help us address these concerns as an agency in and of itself. Drugs are, the drug trafficking, drug usage, it evolves rapidly. I mean, you're seeing changes in the usage of drugs in the last few years that you hadn't seen previously. Prior to my position here, I was a detective and I served time with the Ulster County's Drug Gang Task Force. And I would tell you that probably when I started there in 2007, maybe every 3 out of 10 arrests was either an opiate or prescription medication arrest. I would venture to say now, just from the information I've gotten, because I'm not affiliated, but I would say probably now that's maybe 7 to 8 arrests are opiate or prescription medication. And we're seeing more opioid use than prescription medication because of various reasons. I know some people, one of them being the institution of I-Stop for doctors. It's more difficult now for people to doctor shop and get prescriptions. So we are seeing more along that area. Not to mention, trends are coming back. If you read, one of the big things is the butane hash oil. That was something that it's not new. It's just something that's making a sort of a comeback, and things that I've read, and the potency of that is a big concern for us, and I would think for people as a whole. So again, it's difficult, and resources are another aspect. You have a limited number of resources to address these issues.
Can you, I know what you're talking about with the butane hash oil, but I've heard a couple people say, what is that? in the crowd here, so could you maybe expound upon what that is?
Butane hash oil it's a method that is used. You use butane. It basically extract the concentrated THC levels out of marijuana. I don't know if infuse is the right word, but basically I'm going to use infuse, but they infuse the butane through the marijuana, and it takes or extracts the oils out of the marijuana, and they'll repeat this process. So what you're getting is an oil, eventually becomes almost like a wax-based resin that has a significant THC levels, probably I think 80 to 90% THC levels, where you wouldn't have that if you were smoking marijuana. So it's, and again, even the marijuana that's out there that's being smoked, the THC levels in marijuana in general are a lot higher than what they had been before. But that is something that's now you're seeing more and more. There are videos on YouTube on how to do it. So you can.
It's very hard to detect as well.
It's hard to detect because it's just
from smelling. Yeah, right. It shows up in urine.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
From a law enforcement perspective, excuse me, yes, it is difficult to detect.
Yeah,
There's not an odor of there's no odor that you normally associate with marijuana with it. They're usually packaged in small glassine type envelopes, and it looks just like a piece of wax. We have seen it, here locally, and I know that they've seen it, even on the task force level. But again, it just shows how things are evolving.
And oh, sorry. No, I just the first I heard on the treatment level, hearing about wax, a client speaking about it and talking about having the type of pipe that to use to smoke it, and a little pin, and as he's describing how they put this wax on the pin, because I'm picturing wax, like candle wax. And I'm thinking, that's hash. That's how you smoke hash. What are you talking about? And that's what it is. It's hash. So, everything old is new again. And with the young people, it's like a wax. Right? Like, yo, man, I grew up in the 70s. This is, what are you, really get something. But the potency is so much higher and different. And that's it, so it's just weed. You can't really say that anymore. It's more potent than some of the other scarier drugs in terms of how it psychoactively works.
And with the
Technology
technology,
lasts much longer,
The
the high
wax.
for a very long high, for a very long time,
Yeah.
rather than usually
Yeah.
2 hours.
And much more impairment too. So it's
and with, technology, we have the e-cigs, we have the vape pens, the vapes, vape, vapeology. I shouldn't give them any advertising. But, there's, locally, there's plenty of folks who are carrying e-cigs with their, get your cartridge or, get your vape. And, different varieties for different things. You get one for liquid, one for wax, one for dry herbs, so you can smoke your weed in your vape pen and minimize, to nearly eliminate the odor. So, it's not, it's definitely an area of concern that we have because, we do hear things from, concerned parents and community members who are dealing with someone they love who, has been in this situation and has been, using these different substances. So, we become aware of things from people who are kind of give us a heads up and say, this is happening and we're concerned about it. We don't think parents know what's happening, and so, we're going to be doing more work in that regard. I'm looking at, you can't see who I'm looking at on the camera, but I'm looking at, Cheryl DePaulo and Jennifer Bryan, because, we've already had I've had conversations with both of them as to, looking, to find, a really good speaker who can come in who, to be of help to the community and answer questions specifically around those issues and the neuroscience piece.
One thing I do want to add, and I've told Phoenix this before, but to say it here even publicly, is about a year ago I attended, it was termed a heroin symposium or conference that was hosted by Congressman Chris Gibson at his office in Kingston. And it was a group of law enforcement from Ulster, Dutchess, Orange, Sullivan, all over the place. And it was there we were there with the purpose of talking about the use of heroin and how it has, it's increased and it's become more and more talked about, especially within the last couple of years. And one of the things that I took away from that more than anything else was that this community is ahead of the curve. Not that we're perfect, and not that we can't do more, we shouldn't be, we should always strive to do better, but we are ahead of the curve in comparison to a lot of the other communities that were there. I mean, the things that we have in place, and I think in a large part because of Phoenix, but just this sort of dialogue, a lot of communities don't have that. And that was one of the big things I took away from that symposium was we're better off than some. It doesn't mean we're perfect, but we have a good base, a good foundation to work from.
Absolutely, thank you. And, when I was starting and introducing the panel, and, one of the calls that I made to Barbara recently was, we had a meeting and I said, I've been hearing, right, you get to hear things, and I said, hearing that, heroin and cocaine are rampant at the high school. And, we do a lot of work with Barbara and the faculty and the students at the high school, and, we've had a lot of conversations and working with their student, their social worker, and, how can guidance and really looking at how we can help improve things. And I'm wondering, Barbara, can you say a few words as to, what kinds of things you are dealing with there, and whatever else you want to add to that?
Sure. First of all, obviously, high school is a very busy place, and we have a lot of people that come from a lot of different experiences, and they like to tell their stories, whatever that may be. As far as the dealing with issues of drugs and alcohol within the school, or just the anxiety, the depression, stress, all the other items that have been mentioned tonight. I think the key thing, and Rob mentioned it, and we talked about it a little bit earlier, I think the key piece is that everybody in this room is on the same page. Everybody knows that the kids today, the young adults, the older adults, everybody is facing a lot of issues. And no one person, has the answer or is going to be able to give the answer. So nights like this are really, really, just wonderful. And it really gives me another opportunity to hear who else in the room is, has a little bit more knowledge and expertise in the field, so that I know that I can make a phone call and call Cheryl if I need to know a little bit more about something, whomever it might be. I think the other thing is that Phoenix has just been a tremendous resource, and I have to publicly say that to you. The work that she's done, since taking over the community partnership has been a blessing for the New Paltz Central School District, because Rob mentioned it, the key word as well. We all are faced with limited resources. I mean, if we, out of the school budget, had to come up with, the funding to provide some of these, these programs, I know as much as the superintendent would love to say yes to everything, but, I've tried gym years ago, it's like, what do you think? And then we were right back to, there's not a lot of money available. So thank you for doing all that. And as the kids started to talk about tonight, there's a lot of activity going on. Having said all that, so it's a school. And our focus, at the high school is caring, connecting, and making a difference. So we really try to make sure that everybody knows everybody in the building. It doesn't mean that we have surveillance cameras. It doesn't mean that we're, prying as to what it is that they're doing. But we get to know kids, and there's well over 700 students in the high school now, and you add the adults that are in the building, so you're getting close to 1,000 people that are in that building every day. And it's not just that I have to know, the 1,000 people, but somebody in the building needs to know one of those people. So, and the kids need to know that, and the adults need to know that. And I don't want to say that we're there yet, but I can tell you that this year, we're there a lot, better, a lot closer to that one-on-one with everybody in the building than we were a couple of years ago when I first started. Right, Ron?
Yep.
Yeah. Having been around a little bit, I can tell you that we're in a much better place. And, Phoenix and the community partnership is a big help with that. Back to the issue of drugs. So if you had to say, does New Paltz High School have a drug problem? Every high school has a drug problem. To what extent does it become a problem? The extent to which it's ignored. We don't ignore it. We honestly don't ignore it. So every teacher is aware, every guidance counselor is aware, every administrator obviously is aware. We have an excellent relationship with New Paltz Police, with the community center, with support staff and, parents and such in the community. So we put it on the table. If you had to ask me what's the #1 drug that students are using, besides, the #1 would be alcohol. That's the drug. That's the #1 drug, and it still is. If the drinking age is 21, last time I checked, I don't have 21-year-olds. But I do know that, students use alcohol. So the second one is like, okay, so then we address that. We have all kinds of excellent programs, and we work with parents, and parents know that, and we don't ignore alcohol, though, and I don't want that to just go by lightly. It is a big issue, and, we have a lot of programs at the high school about, drinking and driving and so on and so forth. So it's a major concern. The second thing that we have, of course, is the weed issue. Now, do as many students that may use alcohol, whatever that number is, okay? But is it equal for weed? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And you come back to the information that you have. If I'm with my friends and it's cool to smoke weed, guess what? I smoke, oh yeah. You didn't happen to see me, but I was over, and you hear them and they, it all depends on what's cool and what, what's the truth and what's the perception. So we deal with that. But again, the educational program addresses all of that. The guidance counselors, the teachers, the social worker, the school psychologist, everybody else that's there. I would say the next piece that you have, and this isn't in any particular order, the next issue that we have right now are the e-cigarettes, which you talked about with, with the vapors and hash and so on. Now, Cheryl sent out, through the community partnership, an excellent, communication, identifying exactly what it is and hazards and so on. And I passed that with it, to the entire faculty. And it generated a great deal of discussion, among the faculty and then in many of the classes. I know they came back and they talked about it. But it's real. And that brings up another issue, which, Rob and the law enforcement agencies are involved in. You can buy an e-cigarette, so it's legal. So then the question is, who can possess it? When, why do you have it? And then, as Phoenix just mentioned, not only is it hash or whatever you want to call it, or the wax or, the candy or whatever it might be called, but then you can put, you can camouflage it. So it's kind of got a sweet, it's a smell, an odor that's maybe a little bit like maybe a perfume kind of thing. And so it's not something that you walk in and maybe like the smell of marijuana or something. You say, what's going on here? The next question is, your reasonable suspicion and probable cause. If somebody might say, well, I think you're high. Well, trust me, just because you think somebody is high doesn't mean that either the principal or the assistant principal or anybody else is going to be able to do a legal search and, and deny any student, constitutional rights and so on. That's not going to happen. So you really have to, as administrators, as teachers, we all have to be aware of actually what are the legal, the legalities of doing searches. And what can we do? The e-cigarettes create another problem with that because they're legal. So then you get into, all right, so now what? So what's really the governing body besides obviously the Constitution, but as far as the high school is concerned, it's the code of conduct. So we go back to the code of conduct all the time, and we make sure that the students are aware of what they can do and what they can't do. Having said all that, so are there kids that, throughout the course of the year may have, illegal drugs on them or may be under the influence, whether it's alcohol or marijuana or an e-cigarette or whatever it might be? Yeah, it's there. So we deal with it. Is it a lot? What's the reality? Is it a lot? Is there, 100 kids that get busted? No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. It's a very, 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 very small percentage of the population. And, I apologize, I was going to actually give you the exact percentage that it was, so far this year. But it is significantly less than 3%. And that's over a year, okay? And that's everything that you would have right now. And those are the ones that would even be questioned and so on. I'm not talking about the kids that are suspended or anything like that, but just in terms of the actual number. The real question, though, is, well, what about heroin? What about cocaine? What's going on? All I keep hearing about is this and this and this and this. The truth of the matter is that if you ask high school students, what's the story with heroin, they will all say, oh yeah, there's heroin all around. There's all around. You got to do something about the heroin, Mrs. Clinton. Well, again, we talked to New Paltz police. And what the information that we have is that the heroin that's on the street in New Paltz is primarily an 18 to 22-year-old age group. Now, this is not new information. This is something I can remember going to a meeting like this several years ago, and it was across the street at, I think at the, one of the buildings over at like the Reformed Church. And what happened is that, it's on the streets. Now, is it college students? No. I mean, I'm sure it's some college students, but it's not just college students. So how does that come back into the high school? Because high school students are friends with college students. And high school students talk about it. I can tell you that there's more conversation about heroin going on in the high school now than there was 5 years ago. Do I know that the use of heroin among high school students has increased? I don't know that. I don't know that. But I know there's more conversation. Do I know that, that we're addressing, how often students may have issues and concerns with heroin? Yeah, I mean, I have guidance counselors, I have students, the school social worker and school psychologists that may talk about that. But if I had to give you a number, just to be clear, about how many, if you're talking approximately 750-something students in the high school, you're talking somewhere around 5, less than 5. That's not 5%, that's 5, less than 5.
Yeah.
So that's it. But can I tell you that maybe 5 years ago, 10 years ago, is that number, higher or lower than it was, 5, 10 years ago? It's higher. It probably would have been 1 or 2. 10 years ago, it may not have been anything because people wouldn't dare talk about heroin in high school. But they'll talk about it. And there are kids who have been in circumstances, and there are kids who, by their own admission, say that they've been exposed to, that particular drug. But as far as, is there a heroin epidemic at the high school? No. No.
One of the things I want to also point out is that, I've had a couple of meetings with Lisa Watkins at the high school, the school social worker, and, we've been in conversation as to, really trying to put our heads together as to, how we can be helpful.
while we are strictly about, prevention, and we're also, as I mentioned to you, limited as far as, our financial resources are really for environmental strategies. We are to be serving the community as a whole, not small groups within the community, which is kind of confusing and frustrating, not just for the people in the community, but for staff and coalition members. But we are looking at, what are different options that we might have, and how to get creative and be able to provide support and different types of services for kids who are definitely at risk, or who maybe, have a substance abuse disorder. So, it is, all the kids are our concern. It's just a matter of, how to best help them. And one of the programs looking towards Jonas is, we know about Teen Intervene as a great, intervention program. Early intervention. And, again, here's where we start, making connections and, being able to have conversations as to how we can utilize resources in the community to support the school who has, limited resources as well, and really create a team effort.
There's another piece that I really need to mention, and that is that the educational program at the high school really focuses on, providing students with an environment where they are safe. I mean, first and foremost, that's what we do. We want to make sure that the environment is safe for students to be able to learn. The second thing is that the list of extracurricular activities that are offered at the high school is beyond belief. It's truly beyond belief. Whether you're talking just, your experience, working with the kids and the Step Up program. I have to give Shannon Magnetico is just an amazing resource for us at the high school. Whether it's her peer leaders or the peer mediation, whatever program she has going. Or just her classroom being available during lunch, or her classroom is available after school. It's a built-in drop-in center, so you have those programs. You have the spring musical is in and of itself is bringing another, almost 200 students together at the high school. And I know that's happening at the middle school as well. So you have those, and then you have sports programs. Hundreds of kids that are involved in sports each season. And, so we try to make sure that there's a niche for everybody, and then make sure that if somebody is not particularly involved in, in a particular activity, again, caring, connecting, and making a difference. Jen Cohn, what she does with NPC and digital video is incredible. And you have, Stephanie Costal and just student government that goes above and beyond, and whether they're having a fundraiser for this, to give, to have gifts for the holidays or whatever, a food drive. The Piglets class is going to be working with the Rotary to help out with the backpack programs. So it's not just, sports, it's not just public, ways in which students are involved or being on stage or with the music and everything else, but numerous ways that we can get kids to feel good about themselves, to be involved in the school, be involved in the greater school community, and to see real world experiences, so that it's an authentic environment, so that they know that maybe the situation I'm facing today doesn't make me feel so good, and maybe I am a little depressed, but there's people to go to help you out, number one. Number two is that we'll give you strategies to help you with that.
Mm-hmm.
And we help you to move on, because the important thing is we got to get you to come back to school.
Mm-hmm.
That avoidance behavior is something that we really, really are, trying to work on right now.
Yeah, and there's a couple of questions that haven't been answered. There's some that I think that have been written down, and I want to be able to still draw in, more of Jim and Chris. And if it's okay with you, I'd like to direct a couple of questions in your area, and then what you can, wrap into that would be really helpful. Okay. because I want to make sure that the folks who have some specific questions get those answered before tonight ends. One in particular about many youth are afraid of peer pressure and feel like either if they don't do drugs, that they're a nerd, and so how do we help youth? I think part of that was around the perception issue of kind of helping youth understand that it isn't everyone, but giving them some real skills and stepping up and how to feel comfortable in themselves. But Jim, I know you do a lot of work with youth all the time, and Chris, what would the two of you want to offer as far as how to help youth feel strong in a decision to not use, and how to help parents have that conversation?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like kids are most at risk when they are bored, when there's a lack of connection with other people and with the community. I feel like what we've tried to do over the years, the past 20 years that I've been there at least, is we do primarily a prevention program, and we tutor at the middle school in 25 classes a day. Last year we tutored in over 2,500 classes at the middle school. Then after school with the youth center, it's a drop-in center. After school we have over 500 kids registered in our program this year alone. We have a unique advantage, no offense, over the school and the police department, because we're not police officers, we're not parents, we're not teachers. They know us by our first names. We are, we try to be as accessible as possible in a very unique environment where it's very informal and a lot less pressure for them. So, when stuff does come up with them, we build such relationships with them on a close, our main goal, 100% of what we do is build relationships, whereas, it's different in other circumstances. So we get to know them so well that often when issues come up, they talk to us about what's going on. And I think that's a huge part of it. I'd like to bring up a lot of, I'm older, I'm 43 now. Am I 40? 23, thank you. But most of my staff, and we utilize the college a lot with interns and work study students, they're close in age to kids. And I think having that, a lot of kids cannot see, I bring this up all the time, a lot of kids cannot see 20, 30 years in the future, but they can see college age, they can see the next 10 years. And to have positive influences on their lives, dealing with them on a daily basis that are in that close proximity in age, I think is really helpful. And we've seen so many changes through the years that I think has been, great. I don't know, in terms of the drug issue, I feel like, and I'm circumventing the question, I feel like, but I'm going to get there at some point. We've seen a lot of stuff over the years. I wouldn't personally say that I have seen more use now than I have in the past. I would say that the one thing that I have noticed is that the age of onset is much less. The exposure is much less. We did an environmental scan just a few days ago on the e-cigarette and where it is available in town and how accessible is it. And we got into a pretty extensive conversation with Liquid, as I often do, about stuff. And one of the things was that that it's similar to all their other products. You have to be 18 or older. It's kept with the cigarettes. One of my concerns was, is it on the counter at a store where someone can just grab it and go? Is it? But every place we went to assured us that we keep it behind here. We don't sell to minors. It's kept to where it is. But it's in New York City, it's 21 or older now, and that includes e-cigarettes. So. I think people are catching on to that. I haven't had any experience with kids so much with e-cigarettes. It's drinking. It's marijuana. And it's been replaced with some prescription drugs. It's been replaced with a little here and there of things. But my experience has been in talking to kids and asking them, point blank, because I feel like I could have those conversations, and they know they're not going to be worried about being, arrested or me calling their mom or something. But, in their experiences, what I'm getting is that it's, that they understand a little bit more about it, that they see it around more, but that I haven't heard every single kid tell me that this is going on. I feel like it's the same limited number of experiences. I think some things are just more, there's just more exposure sometimes, and we hear about them more when these instances do occur. Yeah, so, I don't know, I could ramble on for a while longer if you like.
And you know,
Chris, what do you want?
because you get to see them really work with them, and then we get the ones that continue on, and then the ones that really can get into real more serious trouble, and that's a lot fewer than the ones that don't. But the young people, the work we do with them is around getting back to that. They all had interests before they became so bored that all they could do was, smoke weed or take pills, and just flash on the one, the one young person saying, well, vaping marijuana is better than pulling in hot smoke. It's healthier, right? It's healthier than hot smoke, and of course that's giving me a yes or no question, and the answer yes, it's healthier. But instead of saying that, I said, well, getting shot in the leg is healthier than getting shot in the head. But who wants to get shot? So, but so they've already pushed those limits, and then my experience in working in the treatment world, so now they've earned a seat in a treatment program, is that they're really looking for somebody to set those limits. And the same sort of thing, the staff that can connect, be consistent, and follow through on that's what we talked about. Remember, you agreed to this, and now you stepped over, and now this needs to happen. So how do you want to go about it? Because this is going to happen. We can go this way or this way, but we're ending up here. And they respond to that, but also respect that. And so it's like they get to relearn that. So I guess in terms of before they get to that place, it's not being afraid to be firm or consistent with whatever the consequence is. That their job is to push the limits, and our job is to set those limits and stick to them. We work with families around boundaries, and it's your boundary. So don't expect them to tend your boundaries. You need to tend and maintain your own boundaries. So you need to reassert. I said this already. We wrote it in the contract. Yes, say it again.
Yeah.
Say it again. So, because she's hoping that you're only going to say it 12 times, and then 13th time, so let's go for number 13. So, that kind of work. I know I've been doing this work long enough. There was PINS, and then it shifted to PINS diversion. And I don't know all the decisions made in that, but I know on the treatment end that we lost a lot when it shifted to PINS diversion. And my fantasy, this isn't based on that, is that they're kids who want to so PINS is kind of harsh. It's like probation. Well, the kids, not all, a lot of the kids we work with have stepped over into adult world. They've still got that, kiddiness about them. But we have a bunch of adolescents in treatment. We have an adolescent track that is just adolescents. But then we also have adolescents in treatment who are in the adult groups, because they get nothing out of the adolescent track. And they're with the adults. Doesn't mean that they're learning about all the horrible, nasty things with it. In fact, they blow those off because you're old. I'll never do that. Are you kidding me? So but what they're talking about is what the adults are also dealing with in terms of emotional and not knowing how to handle things. And just another point that, like what specific action adults can do, parents, people, out there. And I'm realizing, because the medication, drop boxes, but it's
Med returns.
Med returns, sorry. Dropbox is an old term too, but the med returns are an incredibly wonderful idea. And then it strikes me every time we talk about them, how much over-prescribed medication is being thrown in these boxes to be thrown away. So an option for people is that if a doctor says, or a dentist, we get a lot of addicts from dental work, say, here's your prescription for 20 Oxycontin or Vicodins, and you say, no, thank you. You know, because you'll take one or two and then it sits there just in case, and that's where a lot of kids are getting them. And they're not getting them thinking I'm going to do heroin in 2 years. They're thinking I'll just take these or I'll sell them or I'll share them at a party. And then they don't get all messed up, not all the time. Sometimes it just clears them and they're like, wow. You know, it takes away all the stress and everything, and wow. So I'm not drunk or wasted. Anyway, so just that's an option that you know what, I really don't want to take it. Is there anything else I can? Well, Tylenol. You could take Tylenol, but you know, the pharmaceutical company gave me these free hydrocodones, and you know, so say no to the doctors instead of waiting for the doctors to stop prescribing them. We just stop. Just say no, wasn't it? I came up with it.
You know, the parent, that's the one thing I never got to, is the parents thing. You know, the parents that I do get to speak to, you know, those are the families, those are the houses that where, you know, they're on top of things and there's involvement there. You know, I've always been, had an issue for all these years how, you know, we have a lot of kids who come to the center and are there. There's some time we open and time we close 7 days a week.
Yeah.
I don't know who their families are.
Yeah.
I call their family as I get to talk on the phone, but you know, I know there's you know, as single parents, there's both parents working, there's all these situations, but you know, certainly the more involvement that there's been, the more proactive that people are, you know, the better the situation. Obviously, it's been. And just to echo by the way what everybody else has been kind of saying here, this community in particular, I think it's pretty amazing. I don't live here. I live up in Hurley, but there's, you know, I just met with the Rosendale Youth Center director. I met with the Woodstock Youth Center director recently, and I speak to different people. And you know, in a lot of these communities, there's always issues and fights between the district and the police department, and you know, you don't get anything done when you're just pushing up against. So having these battles, and I think it's really unique here, where you know, we get this opportunity where we're, like you say, we're all on the same page. Everybody's trying to go in the right direction, and the communication, I think, has been vital through the years. And it's really unique in this community.
Yeah.
It's been very helpful.
And I just, no, you said that we could talk. So, but just to piggyback off Jim with the, you know, the single parent homes, both parents working, and that's facts. And it's like, you know, so well, we have to work, yes, and that setup doesn't work the best, and you have to do it.
Yeah.
So what else can be done? You know, and the teachers and counselors and drop-in centers, and we have to. It takes a village. That was mine as well. It takes a village. But it does. But it literally, you know, hokey or whatever it sounds. But that's the reality. We all got to pitch in and be there. You know, I hear real old timers talking about the old neighborhoods, and you know, and you did something out on the street, and Miss Jones saw you.
Yeah.
That's just as much as your mom seeing you, and that's what we really need to be doing.
And I just want to add one thing from an experience that I had recently that I think echoes what you're saying, Chris. And I think we also need to reach out to our community members, whether it be school or treatment providers or prevention specialists, and let them know what's going on for our families and our children, because it's amazing the kinds of support you can get, you know, if you need something and you just ask for it. People are really wanting to help you be successful. And I think sometimes we think we have to do it all by ourselves, you know, and find the solutions. And I think that the solution really is the collaborative effort, you know, the people who are right next to us and we don't even know it. So I think you make a great point.
If I could add one more thing, is recently especially it seems, I think partially because I've been there for a long time, a lot of the kids that I used to deal with who are now in their 20s, I speak to them a lot. They come by a lot. You know, these are people who have graduated from high school or gotten their GEDs and are kind of in this void, you know, and this kind of a space, and especially in New Paltz where you could be young forever. You you know, who are still, people are still hanging out downtown and still kind of, you know, kind of fitting into that. Where in other, I think in other communities, they would stand out a little bit more, as in, what is this person doing, standing on the stoop? You know, but, you know, so I wind up speaking to a lot of, you know, 25-year-olds, 27-year-olds that I've known for a long time that come back and go, I need a job, I need this, you know, and they, you know, and they talk to us about it because we know them. But there's definitely that group, you know, I'm sure you see them too, but.
A couple of things as we wrap up. So if there's, what I think I might do is take some of these questions and put them on the Facebook page with a response so that they also get on the Facebook page. Okay, so then this way, you know, again, we're just trying to use technology to get things out there. I really would like to kind of put on your, kind of get it on your radar, a couple of things. One, if you don't live in this community, if you live in this community, there are 3 med return units. We have one at the New Paltz Police Department, we have one at the SUNY University Police Department, we also have one in the Rosendale Police Department, and thanks to the Ulster Prevention Council and all its great work, I think almost every community in Ulster County now has, we just nailed the last one, congratulations. Every community in this county now has a safe, anonymous, free way to dispose of medication, including veterinarian medication. So, you know, you can bring in medications and just drop them off. We're working together, yes, Roger.
Okay, that's not, we're not just talking about like narcotics and those kind of, any medication that you
Over the
have,
counter.
prescription medication, we don't want any water systems. That's what's happening, and we're all, every time we drink a glass of water, we're drinking some medications. So any medication that you have in a prescription, we drop off.
The other thing I want to point out is that we're going to keep your ears open and your eyes open for our Safer Homes campaign, which is all about prescription drug abuse prevention and getting medications, reducing access and availability, helping keep our kids safer and kind of, you know, prevent some of those, you know, spontaneous, impromptu decisions that aren't really maybe in their best interest. You know, if the temptation is not there, you've just prevented it from happening, you know? So we are working with local hardware, True Value. We're going to be doing some Secure Your Meds campaign. Keep your ears and eyes open for the parent focus groups and the work that we're going to be doing around mindfulness. There's a lot of things coming your way and ways and opportunities to get involved and also to help, you know, create the supports that are needed here. So I thank you all really so much for being here. The topics for that evening. All right. So thank you for our panelists, our guests who are here.
Ridiculous.